why do people who use animus suddenly learn parkour? They are suddenly able to use assassin skills even though they're just lying around. This is caused by the bleeding effect, the term for a side effect of using an animus device. The animus device is a tool for delving into the memories of the subject's ancestors. This device will affect the user's psyche. Before we get into the discussion, don't forget to assassinate the like button and stab the subscribe button. Open the codex, understand the context. Explanation of the bleeding effect. As I explained earlier, the bleeding effect is a consequence of using an animus device. Through the simulations they run, the subject truly feels like their ancestors. They engage in activities and movements in their minds. So indirectly, their minds are practicing the movements, techniques, and abilities their ancestors mastered. However, the bleeding effect isn't passed down physically, but rather psychologically. Strength and stamina depend on each individual. For example, Layla Hassan can rock climb like Bayek, but she still complains it's difficult.
What are you doing now?
Climbing. And it's hard, so Uskuti, will you?
Fine. Let me know when you get to the top.
Even though she's technically proficient, her strength is lacking. So what about Desmond? This is a frequently asked question. Why does Desmond just lie around but is so good at parkour? I'll answer this question. And here's a detail you might have missed. All descendants of assassins have genes with certain tendencies. This tendency is violence, in quotation marks. This is mentioned by Sophia Ricken in the Assassin's Creed movie.
You're living proof of the link between heredity and crime. They're assassins, like you, Cal. All born with a predisposition to violence. Violence is a disease, like cancer. And like cancer, we hope to control it one day.
So, subconsciously, the instincts of these assassin descendants can't come. They tend to move around. Take Callum Lynch, for example. Since childhood, he's enjoyed cycling and physical activity, and at the beginning of the film, Callum is sentenced to death for killing a pimp. Okay, I hope you understand now that genetically, assassin descendants tend to be physically stronger, because their tendencies differ. Another example besides Callum Lynch is of course Ezio, the most famous assassin. He was like that from a young age. He enjoyed parkour and gang fighting. So you could say the apple doesn't fall far from the cellar. This fact also explains why Layla Hassan had difficulty climbing, because she doesn't have assassin ancestry. She's just a smart Abstergo researcher. She can trace someone's memory from dead DNA. And physically, she's actually lacking. But things changed a bit after she wielded the Staff of Hermes. The staff can manipulate the body to prolong life. It's likely that effect also allowed Layla to go hand-to-hand fight combat with Otso Berg and win. The first time I saw Layla defeat Otso Berg, it was like she was just using plot armor. Because Otso Berg is strong and good at fighting. In the comics, he's incredibly cool. But in the game, he's shown briefly and then nerfed. But Layla cheated by using the Piece of Eden. Let's return to the topic of Desmond. And a fact you might have missed is that Desmond received assassin training from childhood. This is in the Assassin's Creed Revelations game, where there's Desmond's voiceover backstory, which you can hear for yourself.
The morning bell. God, I hated that. Ringing 5 days a week just before dawn. Up before the birds. Me and the other kids.
Come on, Desmond, get up. No lagging.
Exercise. Mandatory. A dip in the creek to get clean, then oats with butter and apple juice for breakfast. Ugh.
Even in Assassin's Creed 1, Desmond admits that he used to be an assassin but no longer is.
But I'm not an assassin. Not anymore.
He had problems with his overly controlling father, which led to him running away to become a bartender and eventually being captured by Abstergo. Anyway, the fundamentals of that training shaped his stamina and strength. Therefore, Desmond can perform assassin techniques more skillfully. He has the basics from childhood, coupled with the bleeding effect from his ancestors, so he can activate eagle vision and do what his ancestors did. And keep in mind the timeline from Assassin's Creed 1 to Assassin's Creed 3 is only 4 months. From early September Desmond's capture, to the solar flare apocalypse on December 21, 2012. That's quite a short time, especially since Desmond is a character who is constantly on the move. It's different like Sean Hastings, we take example him. Even though he doesn't use an animus, he spends his days working as an analyst sitting behind the desk. So, he is lacking doing stuff in the field. Unlike Desmond, he is always a field agent in Italy, America, Brazil and many more, so it makes sense. With a background like that, it's not like Desmond just lays around all day and suddenly becomes physically strong. For Desmond, everything makes sense if he able to do some kind of that. Another aspect of the bleeding effect can cause the subject to see fragments of their ancestors' memories in the real world. For example, Desmond often sees Izio Auditor's memories, and Daniel Cross, who are unstable, recalling Nikolai's memories. This disturbance usually worsens with excessive animus used. It also depends on the version of the animus used. If the animus had an arm-like model, like column Lynch's, this effect would be even stronger with the readily available data. The bleeding effect experienced by Callum also seemed different. Normally, someone would only see past memories in the real world. But Callum was different, as he could interact with them, even if it was all just his imagination. So, in his subconscious, Callum began to understand what an assassin was by viewing his ancestors' memories, until he performed his own assassin coronation using the bleeding effect. It was shocking.
We work in the darkness to serve the light.
We are assassins.
With continued use of the animus, the bleeding effect could also cause the subject's personality to be replaced by their ancestors. Many have experienced this. Like Robert Fraser, he became a subject of an Abstergo experiment, held captive for a long time until his personality became Arno Dorian. He ransacked the facility there and was eventually killed by Abstergo. An equally horrific bleeding effect was experienced by Julia Gorm. Boris Pasha's research forced the consciousness of her ancestors into the real world. This was a reverse experiment. The animus is supposed to allow people to enter their ancestors, but this research pushed those ancestors to enter the subject. Although unstable, it is quite effective in instantly enhancing abilities. Not only Julia experienced this, but also Tomo Sakagawa. He briefly used the animus research by Natalie Chapman, and eventually, Alexei Gavrani's personality possessed him. This instability led him to slaughter all the Japanese assassins with him, including his own father. While the bleeding effect has the advantage of granting us new abilities, it can also have detrimental consequences if continued. It weakens the subject's mind, making them easy to control. Daniel Cross, for example, became a Templar sleeper agent. His mind was already weakened to the point where the bleeding effect frequently recurred. Another example is the story of Medea Voronina. She was a researcher for the assassins in Protvino, Moscow, Russia. At the end of the 20th century, the Templars came to power and eradicated the Russian assassins. They were cornered and demanded that Medea develop a powerful weapon instead of researching the animus. But she refused, believing her animus would be useful someday. But this aimless research drove all the test subjects insane, eventually even using her twin daughters, Avdotya and Galina, for the experiment. She even did it herself. On December 21, 2012, the research site experienced a surge in electrical voltage that allowed Medea to access Eve's memories, the leader of the human rebellion against Izu. Because her mind was weakening, this was more than just the bleeding effect. Medea was possessed by Juno. Galena herself had to kill everyone in the research facility, including her own mother and twin sister. Galena's story is actually the saddest. She used her bleeding effect abilities to end all the suffering of her mother's research, along with all the madmen there. So that's a brief explanation and example of the bleeding effect. If you have any thoughts or else, please leave them in the comments. Don't forget to assassinate the like button and stab the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and the last sentence for this video:
We work in the darkness to serve the light.
We are electricians.